I think it would be more fun if Johnny came along with us on the trip. Those words came out of Lan's mouth, my girlfriend, but they struck me like a knife to the heart. I had spent months saving up to plan a romantic trip, just for me and her to celebrate 1 year together. But now she wants to bring Johnny, my adopted brother, along. Lately, I've felt an indescribable change. Since Johnny started going to the same school as Lan, the two of them have grown unusually close. And I, like a third wheel in that relationship, feel left out. I can't understand how this could happen, even though I've given everything for this love. That feeling keeps rising up, like something inside me is shattering. I couldn't say anything, just stood there, looking into her eyes, unable to understand why I had become unnecessary in my own life. My name is Tim, 22 years old, and I've lived my whole life in the shadow of Johnny's favored status. He's not my biological brother, but since being adopted, Johnny has always been the child who received the most care. He's a likable, approachable kid who always knows how to make everyone around him love him. In contrast, I, the biological son, though not lacking in love, have always had to live under the shadow of a child whom my parents favored above all else. I didn't envy that. At least, not at first, when I thought I could stand on my own 2 feet without having to compare myself to him. But now things have changed. As everything slowly slips away from me, I've come to realize a painful truth. I am just a ghost in my own home. Since I was young, I've been used to living under strict discipline. My parents never went easy on me. Whenever I did something wrong, even the smallest mistakes, I would be scolded, sometimes even punished. But with Johnny, everything was different. He was always wrapped in a protective shell, never having to take responsibility for his actions. Every time Johnny broke a bowl or ruined something, I would be the one blamed. Even though I had nothing to do with it, just because I was the older brother, I had to bear the brunt. That feeling had sunk deep into me, with no way out. At those times, I couldn't fight back, only remain silent, looking into my parents' loving eyes as they turned to Johnny, and feeling myself becoming a bystander in my own family. These feelings of unfairness slowly accumulated over time. They weren't just the careless words my parents let slip or the times Johnny was prioritized while I was overlooked. It was a dull, gnawing pain that seeped into every corner of my soul, like wounds that would never heal. We lived under one roof, and everything seemed perfect on the outside, but I felt like an outsider. Society looked at my family and saw us as the ideal model, the happy and open family that always showed love for each other. But in my heart, that was just a perfect shell hiding a painful truth. In my eyes, I was just a child who could never be myself, always living in the shadow of the adopted younger brother whom my parents loved endlessly. Now, my love is also threatened by him. Johnny, the one I thought would always be my little brother, suddenly became a threat to my relationship. The glances, the sweet words exchanged between him and my girlfriend make me feel like I'm being pushed further away. The love I have for Rose doesn't seem to be enough to keep her with me. And he, Johnny, once again becomes the person I have to face, not only because I'm the older brother, but also because he's taken away what I cherish the most. The suspicious signs have been there for a while, but I didn't want to believe them. Once, when I casually scrolled through Rose's phone, I saw a picture of her with Johnny. They were smiling brightly in the school courtyard, holding hands, their eyes locked in a loving gaze. I swallowed hard, trying not to let the unease in my heart spread outward. Maybe they're just friends, I told myself. But then, the pictures didn't stop there. I discovered more of the intimate messages that Rose had been trying to hide. "I love you, I miss you so much," or other affectionate messages she had sent to Johnny, my adopted brother, whom I had considered family. The feeling inside me was like a knife digging deep into my heart. I can't pretend anymore. I feel like I'm being deceived, but I don't want to believe it. My instincts tell me that something is wrong, but I don't want to face the truth. I don't want to hurt myself any more than I already have. However, the urge keeps growing stronger, like a fire burning inside me, forcing me to clarify everything. I must be wrong. I keep telling myself every time I see the pictures, the messages. But there's no denying that things are slowly slipping out of control. I didn't tell anyone about these suspicions. I couldn't share them with my parents because I knew they would always side with Johnny. I couldn't tell my friends because they wouldn't understand. But I have one close friend whom I can always trust. He's the only one I can lean on right now. I called him one evening when everything inside me couldn't stay silent any longer. "What do you think if I confront Rose?" I asked, my voice trembling as though I were standing on the edge of a cliff about to fall. My friend stayed silent for a moment, then said, "Tim, you can't keep avoiding this. You have to clarify everything. Don't let it torment you anymore." "But what if I'm wrong? What if I'm just being unreasonable?" I worried. "You won't know unless you ask her directly. Just do it. Don't let it linger in your mind." His words echoed in my head, urging me to take action. I couldn't continue living in this uncertainty. So, I decided to do it. One evening, when Rose was sitting on the couch, eyes glued to her phone, I walked over. She didn't notice anything. I sat down across from her, my heart a tangled mess. "Rose, we need to talk," I said, trying to keep calm, though inside I felt like a storm was raging. She looked up, her eyes still fixed on the screen. "What is it?" she asked, her voice distracted. "It's about your relationship with Johnny. I don't understand why you two have gotten so close lately." I looked straight into her eyes, not daring to look away. She was silent for a moment, then quickly tried to divert the conversation. "It's nothing, Tim. Johnny and I are just friends," she replied, trying to sound casual. But I couldn't take it anymore. "Friends?" I pulled out my phone and started reading aloud the messages I had found, each word a stab in my heart. "I love you. I miss you so much. You always make me feel special." Rose's face turned pale. She started trembling. Her voice was shaky, but she still tried to stay firm. "Tim, don't do this, I swear. We're just friends." I couldn't believe her words. She no longer looked at me. She turned her face away, gripping her phone tightly, not daring to meet my gaze. "This is the truth you can no longer deny, isn't it, Rose?" I asked, each word cutting into her mind like a knife. "No, I didn't do anything wrong," she tried to say, but her voice was no longer as confident as before. At that moment, Johnny walked into the room. He saw us, then immediately turned around and walked out, as if nothing had happened. I thought I had understood everything. Johnny no longer faced me. He avoided me for days, no explanation, no phone calls, just silence. For that entire week, we were silent. I couldn't stop myself from doubting the relationship between Rose and Johnny. I decided to make a surprise video call to her. When the screen lit up, I didn't just see Rose, but Johnny too. They were sitting together, completely at ease, as if it were the most normal thing. I stopped breathing for a moment, as if my heart had stopped beating. Everything seemed to shatter right in front of my eyes. It felt like something strange swept over me, a feeling I couldn't deny. I decided to call again, hoping it was all just a misunderstanding. But this time, the screen only showed unable to connect. She didn't pick up. That was the last straw. All the doubts, all the uneasy feelings I had, now became an undeniable truth. I couldn't pretend that nothing had happened anymore. When the truth came out, I didn't get any sympathy from my family. I thought they would stand by me, but instead, they blamed me. "You're just being overly jealous," my father said, his voice low but firm. "Johnny's just a likable guy. Everyone likes him. You can't keep doubting him like this." Those words hit me like a slap in the face. The feeling of betrayal didn't just come from Rose, but also from my own family. My mother wasn't any better, she said. Johnny is a good kid. You should understand your little brother. Don't let this sensitivity of yours hurt you. Those words tore my heart apart. I didn't know what to do. I didn't understand why they sided with Johnny. I was the only one in this family who wasn't trusted. What did I do wrong? I just wanted the truth. I just wanted a little bit of fairness. But no, they thought I was too sensitive, too easily hurt. So I stood there, feeling like I was the outsider, worthless in my own home. Not only had I lost trust in Rose, but I had also lost trust in my family. I couldn't believe in love anymore. I couldn't believe in the relationships I had poured my heart into. The feeling of despair surged within me like crashing waves. I felt like I was left in the dark. No one understood me. No one wanted to understand me. I felt like a failure, abandoned, undeserving of any care or attention. But then I knew, if I kept living in this pain, I would never escape. I didn't want to keep being a victim of my own life. I couldn't keep sinking deeper into despair and hurt. So I decided to seek therapy. Not because I was weak, but because I didn't want to continue living like this. I didn't want to be a victim for the rest of my life. I had to learn to face the pain, to stand tall, even if the whole world turned its back on me. After some time thinking, I could no longer bear it. The past few days, I had been living in chaos, between tormenting emotions and unanswered questions. Rose, the one I had loved and trusted, was no longer the person I once knew. I looked into her eyes, but all I saw was coldness, deceit. Every time I looked at that face, all I saw was a shadow of the past, a ghost I couldn't escape from. Finally, I decided I had to end everything. I couldn't live in this lie anymore. I cut ties with Rose. There were no sweet words, no tearful farewells. I began packing up every familiar item in our room, each shirt, each book, all the memories now reduced to meaningless things. Tim, don't do this, please. Rose rushed toward me, her eyes filled with desperation, her voice choking. She grabbed my hand, but I felt nothing but coldness. My entire world now felt like a stone wall separating me from her. You don't deserve my love anymore, Rose. Everything you did to me, to Johnny. It's enough, I said, each word heavy as stone. This love is dead. You can't fix it. She went silent, her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't say anything. I turned away and walked out of the house, never looking back. I moved out to live on my own, starting over from scratch. Everything seemed to collapse. In the first few days, my room was pitifully simple, just me and the silent walls. I had no one to share with, no one to talk to. The feeling of loneliness consumed me, like a shadow closing in on my heart. Sleepless nights, long endless days, everything seemed to drown me in chaotic thoughts. But there was no other way. I had to keep living. I couldn't let myself be consumed by this sorrow. One evening, my best friend called. His voice came through the phone, tinged with concern but full of care. How are you? How does it feel to step out of there? I looked around the empty room, feeling like everything inside me was falling apart. It's not easy. But you know, I have no other choice. I have to learn to live again. I have to accept that it's over. A few weeks later, I started therapy. I didn't do it because I was weak, but because I realized I couldn't keep living in pain. I had to face the wounds inside me, accept that I had been betrayed. The therapy sessions helped me gradually understand that I wasn't at fault in all of this. I didn't have to blame myself. I wasn't the one who created this suffering. That was the lesson I needed to learn, and I knew I had to rise, no matter how painful the past was. Everything will be okay, Tim. Don't let the past control you anymore, my therapist said in one of our sessions. You have the right to be happy. You don't have to live in pain forever. Rose and Johnny, I no longer cared about them. But I knew, even though I didn't say it, they had paid the price for this betrayal. Rose's friends turned their backs on her. The people who once supported her were now gone. Everyone started looking at her with suspicion and disappointment. As for Johnny, he was no longer liked as before. People who once cared for him began to avoid him. No one wanted to be associated with someone who had broken my trust. Their relationship, built on lies and deceit, couldn't last. It certainly couldn't. There was no solid foundation for them to go far because it was all just a facade. Even though I no longer cared about them, I knew everything was over for them. And when they fell, I walked on with newfound faith, alone, stronger than ever. From the pain, I learned how to stand up. I learned how to start over from myself. Time passed, and I realized that change didn't just come from the outside, but from within me. The pain, although still there, no longer controlled me. Every day, I reminded myself that I had the right to be happy. I didn't have to live forever in the shadow of the past. At first, everything was still vague. I still felt like a failure, undeserving of love, undeserving of a fulfilling life. But gradually, through each therapy session, through each conversation with myself, I realized that I had allowed myself to sink into the hurt. I had let myself become a victim of events I couldn't change. But I could change the way I viewed them. I could change the way I lived. One day, I stood in front of the mirror, looked at myself, and asked, "Tim, how many more times will you let the past pull you down?" I looked into my eyes in the mirror. No longer despair, no longer weakness, but a gaze that was firm, strong, as if I had found a part of myself that I had lost. I began rediscovering the little things I had forgotten before. I started waking up early every morning, going to the gym, even trying to cook again. I no longer sat idle, waiting for change to come from others. I began changing myself, and that made me feel free, as if a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Negative thoughts no longer dominated my mind. Instead, I found strength in the quiet moments, in starting over, in the decisions I made for myself. I no longer felt alone because I had learned to love myself, even if others had walked away. One day, during a therapy session, my therapist looked at me and said, "Tim, I see the change in you. You're no longer the one seeking acceptance from others. You're seeking acceptance from yourself." The therapist's words left me stunned. I realized that this was the change I needed. I didn't need anyone else to understand me. I didn't need sympathy or forgiveness from anyone. I just needed to understand and accept myself with all my wounds, mistakes, and even my wrong choices in the past. Gradually, I began to see the world around me change. I met new friends, relationships no longer influenced by betrayal or pain. Every day, I found myself getting stronger, more confident. I had become the person I always wanted to be. Someone who wasn't trapped in the past, but someone living fully in the present. One time, I sat down for coffee with my best friend, and I looked into his eyes. "You've changed, Tim. Looking at you now, I don't recognize the old you," he said, his voice full of surprise. I smiled and gently said, "Yes, I've changed. I'm no longer the weak person, no longer the one running away. I've learned how to stand firm." Looking back, I realized that this change wasn't the result of talks or therapy. It came from within me, from daring to face myself, daring to realize that I deserved happiness. And in the end, I understood that instead of blaming others, I had to be the one to create change for myself. I don't know what lies ahead, but I'm no longer afraid. Everything is open now, and I will live my life with all the good things and challenges ahead.